Hey there. You are listening or watching the Digital Mastermind. My name is John Sarakis, and this is the show for digital marketers, agency owners, technologists, and marketers of any type. And today we have a special episode. We had the opportunity to interview one of what I would consider, and I hope this doesn't offend him, a legend in some respects. His name is David Baldwin. And before we get into that, I'm going to bring out our David. David, why don't you come out here?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well, man. How are you?
Going well.
All right, we're back from our Las Vegas event.
Yep, that was awesome.
That was awesome, and no need to plug. We'll get all that shared out later via email, and a ton's been on social media. But let's get into some of the specifics of this episode. What were some of the highlights for you?
Just how much he's accomplished. I mean, how much he's involved. Everything that he's got going on. He's got a lot, And I was like, geez, I have a fan club on top of running Oyova, and that's about as much as I want.
Yeah, I love where there's so many good takeaways in there where David takes what it is that he's good at and he applies that to the changes that he wants to see in the world, whether those are, creating his agency and fostering the culture there, whether that's, his other brands that he started, or even the foundation based on something he vehemently, believes in, wanting to see those changes. And I don't think enough people do that.
I know it's inspired me to create a foundation. I mean, I'm going through the learning phase right now of saying, how do we do this? Because I want to make change. I guess maybe he inspired that.
Oh, I love hearing that. That's good. That's what the show's about, winning the hearts and minds of marketers and technologists around the world. Another big takeaway I had is, and it's something I've always believed in. I don't know if my dad said it to me or somebody said, if you find yourself in a room where you're the smartest person, you're in the wrong room.
Right.
And he says that about imposter syndrome. Like, you have to, continually seek out people that are better than you, to surround yourself with them so you can be better at what it is that you do.
Now, you said you weren't going to plug Digital Mastermind Las Vegas event. There you go. There you go. Plugging it. That's exactly why I'm a member of the Digital Mastermind Group.
Yeah. No, and that's what it is, right? That Mastermind Group, that's essentially the show that, or the group that produces this. And that is that whole mentality, right? How can we bring the tide in so all boats rise? And he said it in more eloquent words than I can. So that's one of the reasons I want people to listen, just kind of like his philosophy of, his climb.
Yeah, but what's the thing that impacted you the most?
Of the episode?
Yeah.
I think it's that, him taking his, agency, if you will, right, and applying those to everything that he does. I believe that I do that, but I haven't been mindful of that. Does that make sense?
Sure. I mean, you weren't purposeful, more like happenstance.
Yeah, like most things in my life.
So yeah,
that's things out, and I'm like, wow, yeah, you're right. That actually did happen. Yeah, my gravestone will say, "Let's see what happens."
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm thinking about the foundation. Like, growing up, I never stayed in one location longer than 4 years, I think it was. And a lot of people ask, "Oh, military family?" No, just my family just every 4 or 5 years decided to move somewhere. And so when I got to Jacksonville, I laid down roots. This is the first time I've ever laid down roots, and I have history here, and so I was like, man, I really am invested. And then having a child, that's when it's like the next level. It's like, okay, not only am I invested here, but my investment in this town, this city, this state is going to go beyond me. And so how best can I impact that world?
Yeah, and I think it's just, passionately giving a shit about something. And what's the saying? You plant a tree that you'll never be able to see grow, or something like that's. I'm gonna slaughter that. Yeah, it's something about like being a great person, right? Is you plant the tree that you'll never be able to sit in its shade, right? And that's just really just building that community or laying down roots, as you said. And I just thought of it. The thing that I believe, that had a huge impact on me, creating the mindful approach to my work as he has his. The other thing would be not working too hard. I've been told by many that I'll work too hard, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but he found himself working too hard, and it caused some physical issues that can have lasting impact. And I think that's a lesson for anybody. You just really have to pay attention to what it is that you're doing. To yourself, right?
Sure. I think the key, I was just talking with one of our employees about this, is that you have to be mindful of your own triggers or your own things that exhaust you. And like you that's like the next level professional, right? When you don't need somebody to wait for somebody to say, hey, dude, you're being an asshole. Like you can just say, I'm being grumpy. I was just talking to somebody. I'm like, you got to know when you got to step away. And then you have to know what to do to get your mind right. Right. So you need to have those things, those go-tos that say, all right, I know I'm working too hard. I need to step away. I want to go have a cup of coffee on the back porch and relax and look at, those are the things. Or, hey, I need to cut out early and get out on the boat. Like you have to know those things that can get you back. That's how you maintain being a productive, consistent professional, is when you are so mindful of your own body that you can say, all right, I know I'm getting cranky. I need to go do this.
Yeah. I think it's pointing out, the things that zap your energy. That's what I always tell people. All right, what are the things that just literally will suck you dry? And I think along those lines, there's been, I don't know, you have the 10Xers or give it everything that you got, die empty. I think it's all bullshit. Yeah. Like you can't just exhaust everything that you have and consecutively do that. It's absolutely unsustainable. There's a reason that the NFL is only so many games. You can't play it year round. They're beat the hell by the time the playoffs come around. And it's amazing that teams actually can hold together to even win a Super Bowl. And a lot of the teams that actually win are the ones that weren't as plagued by injuries. Right. So, I mean, taking that philosophy to your work life, you have to find time to rest and really take care of yourself.
So ironically, we're talking about the NFL. The NFL usually picks your bye week based on the likelihood that you're going to make the playoffs. And so the Patriots have like a super late bye week. It's like week 14 because they're like, no, there's no way that the Patriots are making the playoffs. That could actually, if they like find a way to get going, that could actually be a really big advantage by getting a week off right before the end of the season.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I just always thought that was random.
No. The typical Super Bowl teams get about a week 7 to 8, 9 bye week, and the teams that they don't think are going to make it get late bye weeks.
All right. Well, I'm not a Pats fan, and I'm really happy the Bucs beat them.
When's the Bucs bye week?
Actually, I don't even know.
I bet you it's like week 7, 8, or 9.
Really? Yeah. I think it's just such a great thing that we took all your retirees and we smoked you guys in Vegas.
Smoked. You lost by a doink. So that's fine.
It was great. You and I have never watched our teams together play each other,
right?
And definitely not in the same spot. So that was definitely a treat.
Your bye week is week 9.
Okay, all right, good to know.
So,
all right. So, is there anything else you think we should, preface here before we get into this fantastic episode with the legendary David Baldwin?
No, I think that pretty much covers it.
Awesome. I think so too. All right. So tune in, check this out. Let us know what you think. Go ahead and like, share, comment, tap the person next to you. Let them know what you think. Shoot me an email too if you have some opinions on it. Jon, Jon at digitalmastermind.com. And this is our interview with David Baldwin. Thank you so much. Hi, David. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
All right. I'd like to start with your climb. How did you get here?
Man, I'm a lifelong creative person, and I didn't know what that meant when I was younger, but I did know I wanted to make a living using my wits. And so when I was younger, I was a musician and thought that would be what I did for a living. And was in a band in college as part of the Austin music scene, and we got really close to being signed, and then that fell apart like those things often do. And I had always said, if I don't have an indication by the time I'm 19 or 20 that I'm going to be able to make a living doing this. I'm going to fall back on advertising, which is something I also really loved and wanted to do. I grew up in an advertising family. My mother worked at a small advertising agency in El Paso. So I would, go in and on weekends and see what she was up to and see these creative guys in the back, like working at art tables and going like, what are those guys? Those are the guys I want to talk to, And so I was smart enough to, I think, say, oh, I'm not going to make the living in music. And so I doubled down on the advertising side of it. So, and here I am. So, I am a creative person, but I have used that creativity to do a lot of different things in my life. And one of the things that I've believed is that you use whatever you do to try to make things a little bit better, but also to have great experiences and see the world. And that's what I've done.
Right on, man. So what was your mom? Was she on the art side, the copy side?
She was a media director. My mother was a media director at a small agency called DeBryan Rettig in El Paso, Texas, which I don't think is around anymore. I'm not 100% sure, but probably those people in some sort of diaspora exist in some form. But so I grew up around it. I just grew up from a very early age knowing that. In fact, I think when I was in 8th grade, I was in a Justin Boot ad. They had that account. and they asked if I would come in, and I think it was a ploy for my mom to get me to cut my hair. So, to get my hair cut to be in this ad. So,
dude, my dad always tried to make me wear cowboy boots as a kid. Like, it was just like, I'm not wearing those boots, man.
Yeah.
It was just where I draw the line, man.
Where are you from?
I'm from Florida. So yeah,
okay.
Born in Tampa, but just north of Florida was just north of Tampa is where I grew up.
Well, I grew up in El Paso, Texas, and cowboy boots were the thing you wore. You wore sneakers or cowboy boots, and I didn't know people didn't wear cowboy boots. And when I moved to New York City in 1985, I wore cowboy boots everywhere, and people were like, "Oh, look at you, Mister Hick," thinking it was some like sort of affect. And I was like, I've been wearing these all my life, man. I didn't know. And it's funny now, if I put them on, they're so uncomfortable compared to what normal shoes are. I had no idea. I didn't know they were uncomfortable.
Yeah, man. I was a skater kid, so like I did not want to. You can't skate in cowboy boots, and that was the fight I had. It was hair in the boots, and my dad would continually just try to change that. And,
well, it's funny that
I won.
It's funny that you say theater kid because both my kids are theater kids, and
skater kid is what I said. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you said theater. Okay.
No.
Well, I take it back. Yeah, skater kids. Like you're really not going to wear cowboy skates. They don't have them.
So you're like 18, 19. You want to double down. You want to get into advertising. So like, how do you get in? Did your mom give you tips? Like, what did that look like?
My mom didn't really know tips like as a media person in an agency in El Paso, but she connected me with some of the, creative people. And I found out you had to have a portfolio. And then I grew up in Texas. So I went to the University of Texas, which has a really great creative program called Texas Creative, which I studied under this guy named Leonard Rubin, who the people who studied under Rubin, a lot of them are still in the business running things. And they were called Rubinites, and which is really weird. But it was a really interesting group of people. Gary Goldsmith is a Rubinite. Dallas Sitson is a Rubinite. Ron Castillo is a Rubinite. Ron Henderson, Carl Dunn. There's some really great people. I'm leaving a lot of people off that list. Jimmy Baldwin at the Richards Group. There's just a ton of really great people that are in very senior positions at this point. We're all old, but he was a New Yorker who had worked at Y&R in the 60s, and he treated his advertising class like you worked at an agency. So if you were late, you were fired. There was zero tolerance. I mean, he would lock the door. If you were late to class, like when class started, he locked the door. And if you showed up late, you didn't get to come in. And if you were late twice, you were kicked out of the class.
Wow.
And he just said like this, you now work in advertising. And if you work in advertising, you got to show up on time. You got to deliver your assignments. You've got to show effort. You've got to do all the things. And as kind of at the time, what a 20-year-old, like 21-year-old, that was pretty awesome. That was a pretty scary wake up call, especially as a musician, but I learned a lot in that class and was surrounded by really, really good people. And, if I've learned anything in this business, surround yourself with people better than you and it'll make you better, And that's what I've done my entire career and continue to do. In everything I do, I'm always looking for someone that's better at me at something.
Yeah, I love that. I don't think enough people do that. I think a lot of people are intimidated and they are more worried about jockeying for position than it is to actually connect with others that are better at something than they are.
Yeah, sometimes, I have a thing, I talk about this a lot. If I have imposter syndrome in a room, I know I'm in the right room. And we all have imposter syndrome. I don't care who you are. I think you're a sociopath if you don't have imposter syndrome at some point in your life. And when I have it, I go like, I'm in the right place, man. I'm going to be learning something from these people.
So you embrace the uncomfortableness based on what the outcome will be.
Yeah, we talk a lot at our company about leaning into fear, and I really clear that it's not real fear. Fear, it's not running into gunfire or running into a burning building fear, but there is still fight or flight when you have any kind of fear or anxiety. And we've just said, like, that's where all the interesting ideas always are, is the scary ones. Like, so if we're ever doing a creative presentation internally, if people are showing ideas, we're like, that scary one's the one we need to pay attention to. That's where you got to go.
Where'd you learn that?
Oh, I don't know. I think I just, I don't know. I don't know. Probably just from great, working with great people.
Yeah, that's pretty advanced. And so, for instance, when you feel that fear, though, do you just tell yourself it's going to be okay, not let your nerves get a hold of you? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. I think you learn as you get older, and I can only speak for myself. Some people learn this really young. Someone like David Droga, who was 25 and running Saatchi, probably knew this early on. But a lot of fear is just negative future fantasy. It's not real. And so you kind of come to believe, that, well, it's gonna be fine. Like, what's the worst thing that could happen? I wouldn't have my own agency if I was not sort of leaning into fear. Like, I started my agency in 2009 and decided to do it in 2008. And if you remember the economy back then, that was not the smartest thing in the world to do.
Same time.
But it was like, well, what do you got to lose? And a good friend of mine runs a company here called Raleigh Denim. His name is Victor Leitmanenko. And he has a saying, he's like, well, you have everything to lose, man. That's what you have to lose, everything. If you don't chase down those things that are a little scary that really light you up and really light your fire, like, you have everything to lose. Like, what that means is, what in 10 years you're gonna look back and go, well, I'm doing something I'm not that satisfied with, that and maybe you fail. And I'm not that afraid to fail. I'm just not. I fail all the time, so I'm just not that afraid of it.
What would you say is your biggest failure?
There's been too many. I mean, I think one of my biggest failures is trusting people. Like, I have a real, I trust everybody. I really will trust you until you let me down. I mean, if you show me signs of you're not trustworthy, I won't trust you. But right. I have a sort of pathological sort of generosity of trust with people. And so you can get let down by that. That's I think a strength and a weakness. But I do think people's greatest strengths are often their greatest weaknesses, and vice versa. So, yep. So I just have learned to sort of live with that. And I have people who I say, like, hey, tell me, tell me if I'm being stupid, and I have some people around me that say, you're being stupid, you're being too trusting. So
what would you say is your most productive failure? Like, in my journey of creating an agency, I can look back at that one thing that says, that, like, turn the light on.
I don't know. I got to really think about that. I'm not sure. I think it's a death by 1,000 cuts. I mean, I think there's been a million little failures. I don't think I've ever spectacularly failed at something that was so momentous, that was so profound. I'll tell you what my biggest failure, thinking about it, was I was working at an agency where I was working 12 to 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I had a heart attack when I was 42.
Wow.
That was a realization of, you can't actually do that. That's not a sustainable lifestyle. And I was chasing what another very famous agency was really sort of renowned for, Crispin and Porter at the time. Yeah. They were very famous for, you work 4 days in a row without going home. And that was a source of pride for them. And I think we thought at the time, my partners and I thought, well, that's what you got to do to be great. And one of the founding principles of Baldwin and of the agency was, can we be great and not kill ourselves? And by that, I don't mean we don't work hard. We work really hard, but we're sane and we have work-life balance. And work-life balance doesn't, I think there's a real misunderstanding of work-life balance, that you get off early. Like I work some and then I get off. I don't think that's what work-life balance is. I think what work-life balance is for me is wherever you are, you're there. Put everything you have in it. And so when you're at home, be the best husband, be the best father, be the best video game player, be the best whatever it is, writer. But when you're at work, be the best employee you can be the best boss you can be, and show up fully to those things. And to me, that's what work-life balance is. And it's understanding that you've got to meet every moment with an open heart and really be there. And so I don't think I understood that when I was 42. That was a long time ago. But when I was 42, I was just, hard charging, working like crazy and stressed out all the time and traveling like a fiend. Like I was just on the road all the time, on production, on client meetings. And my body went, yeah, you can't, no, we're not doing this.
Wow. It just literally, I mean, were you at work when you had a heart attack, or were you at dinner?
No, I had just come off of a trip. This is the insanity of this business. I flew from, I was also the president of the One Club at the time, of the president of the board of the One Club. And I flew to China for a 3-day trip. So you have a day to get there. You're there, your clock is completely screwed up. And then I flew back to Los Angeles on production. And we had a night shoot where we shot 3 nights in a row. And then I came home, and it was right before Christmas. It was like, I want to say it was like on December 18th or something like that. And I got home and I was so tired. I was just so tired. I thought, oh, I'm getting the flu or something. I don't know what this is. And then suddenly the chest, the heaviness, and like my arms went numb. My teeth went numb. I had a headache. I really thought I was getting the flu. And then I just Googled heart attack symptoms. And it was like, if you have 4 out of 6 of these, call at 911, and I was like, well, I have 5 of them,
Wow.
And so my wife drove me to the hospital, which was faster than calling an ambulance, actually. So, because where I live kind of far out. And so, had a heart attack. And it really, it was a failure of sort of taking care of myself, Were
you like a smoker?
No, I didn't smoke. I didn't drink. I drink now. I actually didn't drink at the time. And I'm actually pretty clean. I'm a pretty clean guy, Also work out 4 or 5 days a week. Like I'm not a not healthy person. It's just, again, like
it was
for
just
everybody
your
out there, your body can't do that.
Wow. What'd you do after that?
I have a physical therapist who says your body always wins, So
I like that.
And it's true. Your body always wins. Like if you're trying to abuse it, it will take you down.
Yeah. And so you have that heart attack, and then what do you do? Just say like, all right, I got to change. Like this is work.
Yeah. No, I was like, I even instituted like some policies at the office, and where we said like, things like no more Monday meetings because we were working every weekend. I at the time there was a little bit of a blasé attitude towards the creative people working hard by the rest of the agency. I don't think that's the case anymore, even at that company, which is a great company, by the way. But it was kind of like, well, hey, there's a job came in on Friday. We can have ideas by Tuesday. That we have 4 or 5 days. And it's like, no, they're counting the weekend as a work day,
Mm-hmm.
And that's what was happening there rampantly. And by the way, I was accountable for it. So I was creative director. So I instituted a bunch of things. And by the way, the creative department was not happy with it either. They were just like, you're killing us. This is not making us more productive, And so, so we said no Friday, no Monday meetings. We said if there's an emergency, a client emergency, it has to come up and be approved by the heads of the account. Like you can't have a mid-level client call a mid-level account person and say, hey, I need this on Monday without it being approved up through all the levels. And then the entire team has to be in for the weekend. It can't just be the creative people. You also have to come in. And it's amazing how that just saying that cleans up so much, because they're like, well, I don't want to come in this weekend. I was going to go do the thing. And it's like, well, why do you expect them to? And it's like, well, they're creatives. They love that. It's like, no, they don't love that. They don't love that. That's not something they love, you know?
Do you think granted, everybody talks about work-life balance, there's a lot of these things changing. What would you say the industry as a whole, would you say they're embracing the work-life balance, or is there still a ton?
I think that behavior that I just described is no longer tolerated for the most part. I think what you still see is creative people get really excited about great work. And so they will work their asses off on something great. I mean, creative people are motivated by meaning. Like, they want to work on something meaningful. And whether that meaning is just a really great piece of creative, or something that's going to make them, feel better about what they're working on, or the output, like, I think where it gets hard is if you're working on sort of dreck and crap. Like, you certainly can't do that. Like, nobody wants to do that. But if you give creative people sort of really fun, interesting, meaningful assignments, they'll lay on the railroad tracks for it, But it's not a sustainable lifestyle. You just can't do that all the time.
Yeah, you can do an all-nighter every now and then, but yeah, nobody lives all-nighters. You have to rest.
Yeah.
So what was the catalyst for you starting, Baldwin and?
Well, there are a number of things. One is I had been at the agency I was at. I was the chief creative officer and partner, and I'd been there for 10 years, and we'd been bought 4 times. The parent company had been bought 4 times. And I was like, if I have to go through another insurance plan, like signing up for new insurance and trying to convert options and all that stuff, I was like, I'm so sick of it, And when I was in the business, and when I first started in 1985, I think by 1987, a friend of mine and I wanted to start an agency. And so I just always wanted to do it. And I always thought, like, by the time you get in your 50s, you really should own something. You shouldn't be at the whim of other people, especially as a creative person. I worked at an agency called Della Femina, which was a really fantastic creative agency back in the day. It was Jerry Della Femina's place. And there was this guy there named Jerry, he was an older guy, fantastic guy, just a really great creative guy, wonderful. But he was older. He was probably my age now, and all he did was the crap. Like, they just loaded the crap on him. They're like, he didn't care. You know what I mean? Like, so he was a really accomplished guy, but he was like doing the brochures and stuff. And I went, I'm not going to be that. Yeah. When I get to be that age, like, that's what happens to you if you rely on the system. And I was like, I'm not relying on the system. I'm going to do my own thing. And so I always had that in my head, and I had a couple of opportunities to do it. But the sort of timing wasn't right, or, the people weren't exactly right, or that sort of thing. So, when this happened, it was like the perfect time to do it, And the other thing was, speaking of sort of fear, like, when I left that job, I was getting calls and interest from all of the really big networks to be the chief creative officer of North America, some of the world. They were big jobs for really big money. And my kids at the time, I think, were 12 and 9, maybe, or 11 and 8. They were young. And I was like, if I do this, I'm never going to see them. And I'd already had the heart attack. I was like, I'm not missing this. And so I really wanted to stay where I was in Raleigh. And so that, to me, that was a pretty clear, decision that I wanted to do this. And so I did this instead.
Good for you for choosing them. And you bring up a great point. There's a lot of people that are in positions that others are like, oh, that must be so awesome. They've sacrificed everything. Like, that's literally all they have now is that position.
Yeah. So I don't look back on it as anything other than that was the smart decision at the time. And I'm really glad I did it, and it's been interesting because being at an agency in Raleigh, North Carolina, I've been able to build a whole ecosystem of companies and brands that if had I gone to New York, I would have just been overseeing the stuff coming in, and yes, of course, having an effect on who we hire and all that stuff for sure. But it's been such an interesting journey down here to be able to sort of have your own little kingdom that you're running because of the way you want to run it. That you just don't get that at a big ad agency. You just don't get it.
And you think because of you, so, and that's based on you owning your agency and then having the more time and space to create these other sub businesses? Like, why do you think that is exactly?
Well, I think it's one of the philosophies of the agencies is we create our own luck, and so we believe business should be a force for good, and so we've actually created businesses and brands that are a force for good in the world, and it's part of what we do with our clients. And we're a B Corp, and we're creating B Corps, and it's just part of the philosophy of the agency that we do these things. And so, if that's what you do, that's what you do. And so it's inevitable that you're going to start to create your own companies. The one thing we had, we never succeeded at, we always said, when we first started, we said, we're going to be 30% our own revenue, from our own clients. And that has not happened because of the growth of those clients. Like, you end up putting a lot of the revenue back into growth, so. Which has been interesting, but we've got 2 clients of companies that we've started that we're the agency. So,
which are those 2?
Ponysaurus Brewing, which is it's a really awesome brewery in Durham, North Carolina, man. We're distributing in 3 states now, and we've been named best brewery in Durham 5 years in a row by the local indie, and in a poll, and it's doing great. And we also created a little sub brand called Don't Be Mean to People that supports the LGBT community down here after the bathroom bill. And again, like the mission of the brewery is we say we don't just make beer, we build community. So it's all about, like, how do we use our company and our brewery to make our city, our block better, our neighborhood better, our ward better, our city better, our state better, and ultimately our country better by driving. What do you do with beer? You get together with friends and you drink beer and you talk. And so we thought, like, well, that's just a wonderful connection point between people, and let's build a beer that does that. So when the bathroom bill happened down here, do you know about the bathroom bill? Do you know what that is?
I mean, I know of bathroom bills, but I don't know specifically of this one.
In 2017, there was a bill passed kind of in the the middle of the night, surreptitiously, that basically said trans people have to use their biological, the bathroom of their biology, not their gender. And it was huge national news. And
I think I remember it now.
It cost the state over $1 billion over 10 years. It's crazy, like what happened. But
did companies flee or something as a part of it?
It blew a bunch of deals. It killed tourism. Bands were canceling shows. The NHL canceled their All-Star game. Like, it was crazy. Like, the NBA punished us, like everybody punished. And we said, look, we're a progressive company in a purple state. We just want to make sure that we're a voice for our beliefs. And if our stand is we don't just make beer, we build community, we need to build community and drive empathy. So we created a beer called Don't Be Mean to People. And we've raised $90,000 over 5 years for LGBT causes down here. And we also turned into a fall festival. We had a fall music festival every year until last year because of COVID. I don't think we're going to do it this year now because of Delta. We were going to do it, but it's turned into a bigger thing, and I don't even know what else it could be. Like, maybe it could even become a conference, like a South by Southwest kind of thing. But we'll see. But it's a way of living our values, and it's a way of using the brand to drive the change that we want, but also make great products and sell those great products.
So how do you manage that? Like, what does that look like? We've had some others on the show that have said, don't do it. We've had others that say, do it. Like, what is your philosophy? Do you say, all right, here's our idea. We're going to set up a go structure. Like, what does that look like once you decide you're going to build your own brand?
Yeah. So I think don't do it if you think that it's just going to live in the agency as a non-revenue generating piece of business. By the way, are you hearing it's raining here right now?
No, it sounds like maybe a light fan's on. I could barely hear it.
I have skylights and it's just pounding rain. So as long as you can't hear it. And someone was mowing the lawn as of 30 seconds ago.
All right, if we hear gunshots, then we'll get alarmed.
You'll know. But I think the mistake that I've seen is a lot of agencies say they create their own brands, right?
Yep.
What you find out is they're kind of little house brands that are, there was a story in Adweek or Ad Age about 5 years ago where they said, we're doing a story on agencies with breweries, that have beers. And I was like, oh, that's cool, And so they said, send us the information. And I sent them all the information. And we were brewing 3,000, we have capacity for 3,000 barrels a year at the time. And they were like, oh, oh, you guys are a brewery. Like everybody else is like 2 art directors brew beer in their closets, and they let it ferment in their closets, and then they print labels out on the agency printers, and then they put out like 4th floor brewing, and which is fine. I mean, it's fun, but they were like, oh, that wasn't what the story was. The story was agencies with beers. And I was like, oh, well, we have a brewery. We started a company, and it's a profitable company, And so I think the mistake that I have seen with a lot of people is they think if you build a brand that it can be managed internally, and it can only be managed internally if it's backed by revenue. Otherwise, it goes into the back of the line at all times, right? So you're always going to say, well, we're going to do revenue first. We're going to do revenue jobs first. And so those brands become underserved. So what we've done is, and in the case of the other company I'm going to talk about too, the same thing. We've created an infrastructure on that side, a marketing infrastructure on that side that can handle most of the things. And we're in a consultative basis, and then we do all the design and things like that. So, so we have an account person on it. We have a project manager on it, and then the creative, our design team works on it, and it works great. But there is an entire infrastructure on the I'm going to call it the client side, even though I like to say I'm like the hair club for men, because I'm a president and a client. But that's how it works, and so I kind of oversee both things. But it's a very self-running thing at this point. It's we built it that way.
Did you get investors? Did you?
No, that was a completely bootstrapped thing.
Right on.
Yeah. Now the other thing is called Take Your Seat. So after the George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, I had just had enough. Like so many white people, I like to say I'm embarrassed, but I woke up white the next morning and I went, what does this mean? And what can we do? And my people were like, you need to write a letter. You need to put a statement out. And I was like, nobody wants to hear what I have to say. Like, I'm a 50 plus year old white dude. Like, no one's looking for me to say something. But they wanted me to say something, and so I said something for them. But what I said was, it's time to stop platitudes and start doing things. And so we actually, as an agency, looked at it and sort of said, well, let's apply some strategy to it, and let's apply some creativity to it, and treat it a little bit like a job. And we did a bunch of things. We helped the ACLU of North Carolina put some marketing thought around what defund the police means, because it's the worst piece of marketing I've ever seen in my life. Defunding the police. It doesn't even mean what they're saying.
Right.
And so we helped them do that. We came up with this idea called defund does not mean unfund. And it was all about what it means is redirecting funds to things to let police actually do their jobs versus hamstringing them with social issues and being social workers and things like that. All the other things they have to do.
Right.
But anyway, so and then we donated our window. We have this very big prominent window down in the warehouse district of Raleigh where we did some messaging for them, and we did a bunch of stuff. But one of the things that I did was I was on the board of the One Club at the time. Do you know what the One Club is?
Yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I was on the board of the One Club, and
you might want to explain it though for our audience. Maybe some people don't know though.
Yeah. So the One Club is think of it as the Oscars of advertising. Puts on the one show, which is the Oscars of advertising. So I should say it's actually like the Academy of advertising. And what's great about it compared to the Cannes of the world is the nonprofit that puts every dime back into the community, the creative community, and the industry. And so they're doing just amazing things. They started a thing called One School, where they're a free program to bring Black students into advertising. All sorts of, they've got Where Are All the Black People, which is a really great Black career fair. They've got all kinds of things around education, around portfolio reviews, around support. It's just an amazing organization. And of course, it's also the One Show, which is, to me, growing up in advertising, the One Show was always the show. It was always the One Show, D&AD and Cannes, but One Show for me was always number one. Anyway, so I was the chairman of that board for a while. I was on the board for about 20 years. I got off, and then they asked me to come back on. I came back on, and Kevin Swanepoel, who is the CEO of the club, called me one day and said, if you resign your seat, you can name your successor. And as opposed to the way you get on the board, you have to be nominated. It has to go through all this stuff. It takes a long time. You may or may not get on. And he was like, what would you think about nominating a Black executive to take your place? And I was like, hell yeah, let's do that. So I nominated a woman named Sharina Florence, who is a really spectacular creative person. She works at 72 and Sunny. She's a great creative person, and we've been friends for a long time. And I was like, Sharina, you want to be on the board of the One Club? And she was like, yeah. And it's a career trajectory changing thing to be on that board. It's amazing who you're around and who you get to learn from. And talk about imposter syndrome. I mean, you get in that room, it's the best people in the world in advertising. So, well, I came back from that and I thought, man, that was easy. That was an easy way to make a difference. And Steve Sandstrom also did it from Sandstrom Design. He's one of the best designers I've ever seen in my life, that guy. And he did it as well, and nominated Gail Anderson from SVA and other things. She's a very famous designer. And so now the board's even more diverse, you know, than it was. And it's got two really powerful Black voices on it that, you know, it's not the only Black voices on it, but it just made the board even better. But more importantly for me, I was like, you know, this is what I had just read the book about being an anti-racist. And the whole idea of being an anti-racist is not just be against racism, but to actually be an active ally in it. And part of being an active ally is to actually get out of the way and make room and give up something, you know, give up something for people who deserve it. And so no one's asking for a handout, but get out of the way of things that you just are privileged to have given to you. And so I came back and thought, well, I'm going to do a video. Alexis Ohanian had just done it, who was on the board of Reddit at the time, and he's married to I believe Serena Williams. But he said, hey, he did an Instagram video or a TikTok or something, and he said, I'm giving up my board seat for my daughter, and I want it to be filled by a person of color, and I'm inviting other people to do it. And I was like, I'm gonna do the same thing as that. I'll come back and I'll do a video. And one of my creative directors, Emily Watson, was like, why don't you use the hashtag take your seat, you know? And I was like, well, why don't we start a company called Take Your Seat? And so that's what we did. So like so many ideas, they just start out with, you know, it would be cool. And then you do it, you know? So I think that's something my partners probably dread hearing me say, is when I go, you know, it would be cool, because it means we're probably going to do something. But that's what we did. So we incorporated it. We started Take Your Seat. We're on this journey to build, you know, we're trying to fight systemic racism from the boardroom, one board seat at a time. And we're building a community of Black executives and allies to build and develop and train people for board readiness, or to actually provide opportunities for people who are board ready to get on boards. And we feel like all of the action on the street is really important, you know, all of the marching and all that, but you know, it needs to happen on the top too. And we feel like business always has a role to play. I am a free market capitalist, you know, so how can capitalism play a role in this? The way capitalism can play a role in it is by creating healthier boards that are more diverse. Diverse boards actually, it's been documented, actually have greater financial growth and returns than non-diverse boards. And you end up with just more innovation, better thinking, and you should represent the people that that your company represents. And most boards don't. You know, if you've got an all-white male board, they're not representing the country and their consumer base. So that's what we've done. And now what we're doing is converting it to be Black owned and led. So it's Black led right now. And we've hired a really impressive team of Black executives to run it. And my partners, and I immediately went, when we first did this, I immediately went to a friend of mine who's a VC named Jon Replogle, who was an old client at Burt's Bees. He's got a company called One Better Ventures. And Peter Graham and I are the founders. And then we brought in a CEO named Jerusha Stewart, who was a co-founder. She came in very, very early. And so now there's 4 founders of the company. And as we convert equity, we're all just giving our equity up for more, to bring in more and more people, so that it's actually Black majority owned. And again, it's about getting out of the way. It's about donating our time and treasure and also our passion, but also getting out of the way to provide opportunities.
Is it a consultancy? Like, because it doesn't sound like it's a 501(c)(3). You keep saying
no,
business.
it's a for-profit business. We're B Corp pending. We're going to be a B Corp. We're doing this in partnership with B Labs, which I do take your seat will be a B Corp as well. We're what's called B Corp pending because we're going through the process right now.
Okay.
But we're doing this in partnership with B Labs. So we're into a network of over 3,000 B Corps right now. We're providing slates to companies looking for to fill board positions. We've gotten a bunch of a bunch of sponsorship dollars from companies. It's been incredible. It's been an incredible ride, and I hope to put ourselves out of business someday.
So I guess what I'm just trying to understand is, does it make money? Like,
Yeah.
How does it make money?
Well, we're doing sponsorships, we're doing events,
Okay,
we're doing
got
services, we're doing board training. The one thing we're not doing is recruiting, though we're providing some recruiters with recruiting. But so what we do is we'll go to a corporation and lobby them to open up a seat, give up a seat, or make a seat for a Black executive. And we're really focusing on Black executives, and we're focusing on Black executives because we believe that's the domino that knocks over all diversity, that creates all diversity. Because what happens is typically corporations will say, well, we got an Asian woman on our board, we're diverse now, and that's fantastic, by the way. Like, we're not saying that's a bad thing, but what we are saying is you need to have Black executives in the room. You need Black voices in the room making decisions that will benefit all. And so it'll just make you smarter. It'll make you smarter as a board, And so that's what we're doing. And yeah, we're a for-profit company, and we're going hard at it. We're very specifically not a nonprofit because we want to prove, again, we're always trying to prove business as a force for good.
I like that distinction too, because I think a lot of people just immediately go over to something that's nonprofit rather than realizing that there is a financial model that could succeed in a for-profit business. And I think it's kind of an easy way out. So
to me, it's been proven over and over again. I mean, it's been proven over and over again that companies that live by their values, execute by their values, and they actually have more motivated staffs. They have more. They have greater market cap. Like, there's a Harvard business study that came out a few years ago showing all of this stuff. Like, it makes for more profitable companies. It just does. And so why not use your company to make things better for people?
Right.
Make the thing you do make things better for people. So, and that can be any company, and that's what my agency is all about. So that's what we do is we have what we call big P, little p. Like, there's big purpose and little purpose. And, if I read an article about a couple of years ago that I thought was really fantastic, which was basically saying, your purpose can't exceed your grasp, but it needs to be high enough to where it's inspirational. So, like, if you're a car wash, if your purpose is to cleanse the human spirit, it's probably a little high, But if your purpose is to make people proud of their cars, that's a pretty awesome purpose.
Right.
Proud of their car ownership. And so
you got to stretch a little bit.
What's that?
You got to stretch a little bit, but it can't be completely out.
So that's how we look at it, is we call it big P, little p. Like, that we've got brands that are big P companies, and we've got brands that are little p companies. But that's what we're interested in is we define a brand a little differently than a lot of companies. We think of brands as a set of behaviors based on a value set. And some of those behaviors are advertising and design and all of those things, but it really should be all the behaviors of a company are defined by that brand, because the founder started the company with some set of values. And so what you end up with is a lot of companies sort of lose their way or forget that. And so what we're always trying to do is say, well, let's remind you of why you started this company and what it's always been about. And let's reverse engineer the company to fit the brand if it's not. And let's try to get everything in alignment. And what you end up with is a lot faster growth, more motivated people. People are proud to work at the company. And you end up with more focused advertising, more focused design, more focused messaging. And everybody's rowing the same way.
Have you fired clients for their values?
We've never fired a company for their values. We've a bunch of times not taken clients because of their values. We've normally vetted what we think the client is about before we get to that point. We have a lot of weird things. We don't normally pitch. We don't do a lot of spec pitches. So
Good
I
for
think
you.
we've done 2 spec pitches in 6 years.
Did you win them?
We won them both. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. But we just don't do it. What we do is we try to get projects, and then I always say then infect them with creativity and positivity and energy, and turn it into an AOR. And that's how we've gotten almost every business.
So where do you get your clients from now exactly?
Well, we have a prospecting model that we use, and we go after them and we try to get projects.
Okay.
So,
Perfect.
yeah. And we'll go in through like HR, like we'll go in through weird ways to say, like, we can help your company align around what it's about versus you need a new ad campaign. Your advertising sucks. You need to, we're certainly happy to have the advertising conversation, and we love advertising, and we're an advertising agency. So I don't want to in any way say we're not, but we're also a design consultancy, a strategy consultancy. We do a lot of very foundational work. Our feeling is that if all you're thinking about is the advertising, you're actually missing a huge block of the puzzle. And so you need to make, now some clients come in and they have that figured out, and so that's fine. And honestly, that's great, but a lot of them don't, and a lot of them think they do and find out that they don't. So our feeling is you really need to align everything around your brand, and part of the output of that is better advertising, design, and marketing.
So how much of your day is spent between the ventures that you have? Like, what does a day in David's life look like?
Well, I spend a lot more time on Take Your Seat right now than I probably will in a year. And I'm spending a little less time than I did last year, which was probably 30 hours a week of my time last year was spent on Take Your Seat.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot because we were a startup, and we are still a startup, but I mean, we were really a startup,
Yeah.
It was running on spit and chewing gum trying to get it started. But Ponysaurus, I have a couple status meetings during the week, and we have a lot of sort of product design meetings and things like that. And then the rest is agency stuff. But I'm the CEO now, so I'm not running the creative department. My joke is I'm the CEO and junior copywriter because I write a lot on things. I'll get brought in to write things that need to be, written. If we're running, if we have something that needs to get done, there's nobody to work on it. I'm like, well, I'll do it, because I do still love writing, and I'm still a copywriter. But I'm really operating at a 50,000 foot level with the agency right now. So I'm also doing my podcast. I'm doing I do mostly new business. Most of my stuff is sort of overall strategy at the agency and new business and things like that. Personnel conversations, all management stuff. But
was new business something you did in your career before, or is that something you've had to? Okay, you didn't just have to.
No. I've always, but I've gone from being the shiny guy you put in the room to the guy behind the scenes that's empowering the team to do stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
you're no longer the product.
And I will tell you, one of the best new business things we've ever done is this podcast. We started a podcast, and it's in earnest a really great podcast for marketing people. But it turned out we didn't do it for this reason. We wanted to do a podcast because we want our philosophy out there. But it's just been such a great way to meet clients.
Yeah,
really great clients. And so I can't say it's turned into an account yet. What it's turned into is a bunch of amazing relationships that may turn into an account if it makes sense at some point. It's been an incredible byproduct that we didn't expect or know,
Yeah.
So,
and it's interesting about podcasts, and I think in that respect, it's almost like networking 2.0, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Who knew?
Right.
I didn't know. I'm going to tell you, I'm stupid. I didn't know.
But I know there's some ventures out there, and I've been invited on these podcasts where they do like these 15-minute snippets just to meet clients.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude, come on, man. Yeah. It's just, it's like the way everybody ruined blogging, right? Blogging was really cool.
Right.
It was this great expressive way you could kind of talk about yourself, a little bit of business in there. And then it turned into this just mill of just cranking it out. So, the readership went down. I'd hate to see that go with podcasting, but I love the same reason that you do it. Is that's kind of the same reason we do it. We just want to meet really cool people and just share their information with the world.
Yeah. Well, my initial thing was there's a lot of really smart marketing people out there. Every business you look at is basically the same in that they have the same problems. And so I thought, like, let's just get the smartest marketing people to talk about their problems and solutions and what they're up to. And it'll just help everybody. And I'm just a believer in rising tides raises all boats. So let's get that stuff out there. And it's a chance for us to feature clients we admire. And it's not our clients, it's just clients we admire. It's just people that we think are great. And and it's just been so rewarding. I mean, just meeting these people and talking to them I've gotten smarter. I've learned things. I learn something every episode from somebody. It's great. Yeah, and I love to learn. I'm not, I don't know if that might be one of the themes from this whole thing. Is I just really like to learn things. So.
No, I love that. Yeah. And that's one of the things Dave and I have just kind of got like a degree that we could never get at any school, just based on all the people we've talked to and just the changes that we've been able to implement on that. I do want to jump back. So you were in a band, you almost got signed. I take it you still play music to some respect.
Yeah, I do.
How much of, music is involved in your agency? And what I mean by that is not necessarily making the music, but, I look at it, I was in a band too, but I take things from being in a band, working construction. I grew up, my father owned a construction company, and those are the basis of my thinking. Is any of that the same for you, or? So
I have a couple of answers to that have really formed me. Having been in bands my entire life, I like to talk about the company as a band, and I talk about band dynamics a lot in the company, and I use band analogies all the time. And ironically, we never meant it, but Baldwin and is band. And so we talk a lot about the band. But a lot of companies say, we're a family. And I go, you can't fire someone in your family. Like, we're not really a family. But we are a band. And here's the principles that I love from being in a band. You can't play over everybody or you're a terrible band, right? Yeah. If one person takes over, unless it's a solo act, you're a terrible band. Everybody has to help set up and do the sound check and break down. If you don't, and I'm not talking about big bands with roadies. I'm talking about everyone, when you're in a band, and I toured, I mean, you're a roadie and you're a guitar player and a roadie and you're a singer and a roadie and all those things. And there's also a language, a collaborative language that happens when you write music together. And do you write music?
I haven't now in years. I play a little bit on a ukulele and mess around, but nothing.
So I'm a songwriter too, but I love working with other songwriters. Like, it just makes you better. And again, you can't hog songwriting. Like, you just can't do it. If you hog songwriting, you end up with upset people around you. And, now you might come in with your own song and that's fine, but it's just, there's a collaboration and a language to music that you and I guarantee could sit down and find a commonality to play together. Even though we've never played together, we could find something. We would. And I find that as sort of a creative, use creative person and sort of the capital C creative person, not advertising creative person, but as a creative person who relies on my wits for a living, I love that. Like, I love collaboration. I love that sort of give and take. I love the language of it. And I think there's a lot to learn in an agency from that kind of structure versus a hierarchical structure where you tell people what to do, We don't really have a tell people what to do culture. We have very much a collaborative, everybody's out for the same goals. Yes, we have creative directors. Yes, we have people that are not creative directors, but there's no sort of lording it over the small folk, as they say on Game of Thrones. So I think that all comes from my band experience, and my title is lead guitar at the agency. And the reason I chose that title was that exact reason. I'm like, I'm not the band. I'm just a guitar player. Sometimes I step forward and take a guitar solo, but a lot of times I'm just standing in the back playing, Yeah.
And so I look at it, and it sounds like a lot of the same respects you do, where it's a meritocracy. Music is a merit. Like, if it doesn't sound good, it's not going to go in. Yeah. You can't have the volume too high. We have to be in rhythm with each other, or this isn't going to work.
Yeah. It's the thing of when you're singing with harmony with somebody, if you can hear yourself over other people, you're too loud. Yeah. You needs to be a blend, So
I love that, man.
Yeah.
And is there anything that we haven't covered today that you think the world should know?
No, I think, I think that creative people are motivated by meaning. And we said that a little bit. And I wish more creative people made that an imperative to themselves and didn't put up with not living in a non-meaningful way as creative people. And, there's a whole movement around, and I find it to be a very cynical movement around, like, if you believe that advertising is an opportunity to make the world better, you hate advertising and you're being cynical about, and I just find that to be cynical. I find, like, well, why wouldn't you, whatever you're doing, you should be trying to make things better for the people that you're serving. Yeah. We're in a service business. Like, you should be serving the end user is a human being, not a consumer. The word consumer drives me crazy. I've used it, but I counted how many times I used it one day. I used it 62 times one day.
Whoa.
And I not just me, heard it. You know what I mean? I just would mark it down. Every time I heard the word consumer, I would just put a little chicken scratch. And I heard it 62 times in one day. And I was like, we are not, the notion of being a consumer calls sort of to mind like locusts descending on a field and consuming. And that's not what I think most people are. And it's what marketing can drive. And I think it's the wrong imperative. And so we've got to find ways, especially right now, to grow and to use our businesses to make things better for people. And our whole belief system at the agency at Baldwin and is we believe the world needs brands to make things better. Like, brands have a part to play. That doesn't mean take political that doesn't necessarily mean like take, back the Democrats, that's not what that means. It means whatever your constituency is that you're serving, like, make their lives better.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing. Now, that might be better breath, that might be,
everybody should have better breath.
Yeah. I mean, but you're serving people.
Yeah.
And you need to remember that you're serving people and they're human beings. And they're, David Ogilvy said, the consumer's not a moron. She's your wife.
Yeah.
And, I think updating that to today, you wouldn't say she's your wife. You would just say they're a person, and they're a human being. And I believe that fundamentally. And so we just always try to remember there's a human being on the other side of anything we're doing, even when we start our own companies, so.
Solid message. I love it, man. Awesome. And then this is your space to plug anything that you want.
Oh, well, you can see my awesome cocktails on Instagram at David L. Baldwin. You can buy my book, The Belief Economy, on Amazon.com, which is all about this. It's all about using marketing to make the world better. I have a podcast called Brands in Action. That's on all the places. And really, I've had some just fantastic guests on the podcast. And so I think it's a really great place to learn from smart marketers about what they're up to and what they're doing. And then the agency's baldwinand.com, the brewery's ponysourcebrewing.com, and takeyourseat.co. If you're a Black executive or would like to be an ally that wants to join in helping Black executives move forward and support that effort, go to takeyourseat.co and join the community, because there's a lot of opportunity to give back and to be a part of moving this world forward and this conversation forward there. That's basically what I got. It's a lot.
No, it's perfect, man. Thank you. That was a solid plug. Well, David, I appreciate you joining us today, man. That was a ton of great information. Thank you so much for being willing to share.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I have a feeling you're going to listen back and hear a lot of rain and lawn mowing. So
no, man, no worries.
All right, man. Take care.
You too.
Thanks so much.
Hope you enjoyed our episode. Please subscribe and review wherever you can. And if you would like to join the Digital Mastermind, go ahead and shoot me an email at jon@digitalmastermind.com or visit us at digitalmastermind.com. We'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye now.